Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to talk to you about radical Reconstruction and what radical Republicans wanted to do about that. So we're going to start off by looking at this photograph. I want you to look at everything, describe it to yourself in your own head. When and where do you think this photograph was taken? What are three things you think people living in this setting did in the years following the photograph? So giving you a few minutes for that. This photograph was actually taken in April 1865 in Richmond, Virginia, which was the capital of the Confederate South. Today, you're going to learn about some of the major challenges that the United States faced after the Civil War in trying to reconstruct the Union. The Civil War, I think I'm just going to go through this part really briefly, was 1861 through 1865. It was fought between the United States and the Confederate States. And in this case, the United States would be in the dark blue and the Confederate States would be in the red on the map you're looking at right now. Disagreements about slavery were a central source of increasing political unrest and disunity in the country that led to the war. These disagreements largely followed sectional lines. Many white Southerners, both slaveholding and not, supported slavery, while many Northerners opposed slavery, and the United States defeated the Confederate States of America. Reconstruction refers to the period following the Civil War between 1865 and 1877. John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer, assassinated President Lincoln 5 days after the Supreme Commander of the Confederate Army surrendered. And we talked a little bit about that already. As Lincoln's vice president, Andrew Johnson, became the new president, Johnson was a Southern Democrat who opposed secession, which means the South leaving the United States. But he compared to Northern Republicans, was relatively sympathetic to the Southern states, meaning for Reconstruction, that's why the radical Republicans didn't really agree with President Johnson, because the radical Republicans wanted to punish the South. Remember, President Johnson was from the South, so he was, cared about them. Many people in Congress opposed Johnson. His biggest opponents were called radical Republicans. Radical means extreme, and radicals typically want to see extreme changes in society. In the 1860s, the radical Republicans wanted to punish the South for the Civil War and supported equal rights for freed men. So there obviously are some major questions on how to go through with Reconstruction. So you can kind of just look through these. These are the questions. You don't necessarily need to answer them right now, but this is what the United States was asking itself. How should the South be rebuilt? How should the states that seceded, meaning left the Confederate States, be brought back into the Union? And how should former slaves be incorporated into the country as freed men and women? Now, I don't know why this picture isn't coming through, but hundreds of thousands of soldiers died during the Civil War. A recent study suggests that the total number of deaths was 750,000. At the start of the Civil War, there were nearly 4 million slaves in the United States. After 4 years of war and over 200 years of slavery, could Northerners and Southerners rebuild the South together? Could they unify as citizens of the same country? Some other questions that people were asking. Should people who fought against the United States be recognized as citizens? Should they be punished? And that would be the people in the South. Should they be recognized as citizens, or should that be taken away from them? What should be done in the Southern state governments that fought against the United States? Not all Southern states fought against the North. They were called border states. And if we went back to that slide with the United States on it, the light blue states, those were the border states, and they were kind of not involved, although there was fighting on their land. Oops, I went too far, sorry. I didn't. I'm good. Okay, so this is what we're going to kind of go through in the assignment comes after this slideshow. African Americans in the South, just before the Civil War, there were about 4 million enslaved people in the United States. For over 200 years, Black people in America had been systemically dehumanized. As slaves, they were considered property and, as such, had no legal rights. And in 1857, the Supreme Court ruled in the Dred Scott case that all African Americans, whether enslaved or free, could not be citizens. So during the Civil War, African Americans provided critical support to the Union's fight, and that would be the North, acting as spies, cooks, soldiers, and launderers for the Army. Black soldiers made up 10% of the Union Army, half of whom were free Northerners and half of whom were Southerners who escaped to the Union lines. They were often assigned the hardest, most dangerous work and usually suffered far worse than the white soldiers when taken prisoner by the Confederate Army. So if you were a free man, a free Black man in the North, and you decided to fight with the Union against the Confederacy, if you were captured, they would do horrible things to you and maybe even put you back into slavery, even if you had never been a slave to begin with. It was very scary, and they were very brave. So how would freed men and women be treated in the southern states? How would Northerners address the issue of including former slaves as citizens in society? And what were some major challenges that former slaves faced? Now, the central historical question, this is what we're going to be working on. Why was the radical Republican plan for Reconstruction considered radical? And if we went back to what is radical, remember it is extreme change, people who want extreme change. So I'm going to close this out, and you're going to get into Canvas. And from there, you're going to be working on a couple documents, and you're going to be answering the questions. That has to do with Thaddeus Stevens, who is a radical Republican, and Andrew Johnson. And you're going to go through those documents and answer the guiding questions. And I will see you on Monday, and we'll go through that together. Bye.